All right, let's dive into something pretty epic today. The rise and fall of ancient
Oh,
civilizations.
wow.
We're going to be using this really fascinating documentary to guide us. It's called The Rise and Fall of Ancient Civilizations,
Okay.
and it's about an hour long.
All right.
So what we're trying to do is, kind of like pull out the most interesting insights about what makes these civilizations grow
Mm,
and what leads to their downfall.
yeah.
Because, I think there are some parallels to today's world.
You know what's really cool about looking at these ancient societies is that you get this really unique perspective on human behavior, right? I mean, they did amazing things, but they also made mistakes.
Yeah.
And, those mistakes can teach us a lot about the challenges that we face in the 21st century.
Absolutely, yeah. So the documentary, it kicks off in Mesopotamia,
Okay.
which they call the cradle of civilization.
Right.
And that takes us back over 5,000 years,
Wow.
which is, pretty hard to wrap your head around, but it was in this region, along the Tigris and Euphrates rivers,
Mm-hmm.
that we start to see some of the earliest organized societies emerge.
Yeah, and it's, what's so remarkable is that this change from hunter-gatherer groups who are nomadic to like settled agricultural communities
Right.
happened independently in different parts of the world
Yeah.
at roughly the same time.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it suggests that there were, certain conditions, maybe the development of agriculture, the need to manage resources, that really drove this shift towards more complex um, social structures.
Makes sense. The documentary highlights some of the key innovations from this period, like cuneiform writing, one of the earliest writing systems. I mean, that must have been a game changer when it came to communication and replicating.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine a world without writing.
Right.
The ability to record information, share knowledge across generations. That was huge. That was like a monumental leap forward.
Yeah.
And it's not, a coincidence that writing systems tend to develop at the same time as the rise of more complex political and social structures.
Yeah, they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So they also talk about Hammurabi's code in the film,
Okay.
which is considered one of the first attempts to create a system of laws and justice.
Yeah.
And I think, what's interesting to me is that it wasn't just a list of rules. It,
Uh-huh.
it, it laid out specific punishments for different offenses.
Right.
So it seems like there was a real effort to establish order
Yeah.
and to deter crime.
Right. And what's really interesting is that Hammurabi's code, even though it's thousands of years old, reflects so many of the same principles that we see in our modern legal system.
It's incredible.
The idea of proportionality and punishment, the concept of evidence, witnesses, these are all things that have, kind of echoed throughout history.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like these early Mesopotamians were setting the stage for how we think about law and order today.
Absolutely.
But, Mesopotamia wasn't the only civilization that was kind of making waves during this period. The documentary also touches on the Egyptians, with their powerful pharaohs
Yeah.
and those incredible pyramids. I mean, seriously, how did they even build those things with the technology they had back then?
It's one of the great mysteries of ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
We've got theories about ramps and levers and these massive workforces and incredibly skilled engineers. But the scale of it is, it's still mind-boggling.
Yeah, no kidding. So then there's the Indus Valley Civilization,
Okay?
which thrived in what's now India and Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
And they were known for their really advanced urban planning, including these drainage systems that were way ahead of their time.
What's so fascinating about the Indus Valley civilization is that there's still so much we don't know.
Right.
Their writing system, we haven't deciphered it yet.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
we're missing a big piece of the puzzle when it comes to their culture and beliefs.
Yeah, it's like they left us this elaborate city, but no instruction manual.
Right. Exactly.
And then, of course, we can't forget about ancient China,
Yeah.
the Shang and Zhou dynasties.
Mhm.
They developed their own writing systems, complex bronze casting techniques, and the concept of the mandate of heaven, which linked a ruler's legitimacy to divine approval.
Yeah, the mandate of heaven is really interesting because, it provided this way to justify both the rise and fall of dynasties. If a ruler was successful, it was seen as proof that they had this divine mandate. But if things went bad, it was a sign that they'd lost the favor of the heavens and they could be overthrown.
It's almost a clever way to kind of maintain order and
Hmm.
continuity, even in times of upheaval.
Yeah.
Right? So we've got all these incredible civilizations popping up, each with their own innovations and social structures. It's like this burst of creativity
Yeah.
and ingenuity happening all over the globe.
And it's important to remember that these civilizations didn't exist in isolation.
Right.
They interacted with each other, they traded goods, they traded ideas, sometimes they clashed. And that led to the spread of knowledge and cultural exchange, but it also, led to conflict and competition.
Yeah, definitely. And that competition, as we see in the documentary, is what kind of sets the stage for the next chapter, the Age of Empires.
Right.
So we've seen the beginnings of civilization, all these incredible innovations popping up, but now things are going to get a lot more ambitious. The documentary shifts gears to focus on the rise of empires. You can almost feel the energy change, like this ripple effect of expanding power.
It's really interesting how they portray this shift in the documentary. It's not just about conquest, although obviously that's a big part of it.
Right.
But it's also about this drive to connect, to create these vast networks of trade and communication, and to spread cultural ideas across, bigger and bigger territories.
Yeah, so the Fur Empire they look at is the Persian Empire, which was known for its incredibly efficient administration and its surprisingly tolerant approach to the different cultures within its borders.
I mean, think about it. You're trying to manage this huge territory from Egypt to India. How do you even keep things running smoothly? Well, the Persians developed this system of satraps, regional governors who had a lot of autonomy, and they allowed conquered peoples to keep their own customs and religions as long as they paid their taxes
Right.
and remained loyal.
That's pretty smart, especially for, back then, like instead of trying to force everyone to conform,
Right.
you create a system that allows for some flexibility and local control. But wouldn't that approach also create like its own challenges? I mean, how do you make sure that, everyone stays unified and prevent those regional powers from becoming too independent?
That's the balance that all empires have to, uh, figure out.
Right. Yeah.
Too much control from the center,
Right.
and you risk stifling innovation and making people resentful.
Yeah.
Too much autonomy, and the whole thing could just, fracture and fall apart.
Right. Makes you wonder if there's some sort of like sweet spot, like a perfect balance of power
Hmm.
that lets an empire grow and stay stable at the same time. Okay, so let's move on to another empire, the Greeks.
Okay.
And here we see something totally different happening. Instead of one big unified empire, you have all these city-states, each with its own culture and political system.
Yeah, the contrast between Athens and Sparta is a perfect example of that.
Oh, yeah.
Athens, focus on democracy, philosophy, the arts. They represent one ideal of Greek civilization. But then you've got Sparta with their warrior culture and strict social hierarchy,
Right.
a totally different side of the Greek world.
It's like they're two sides of the same coin, right?
Yeah.
Each kind of representing different aspects of Greek identity. And then you've got Alexander the Great,
Ah, yes.
who comes in with this ambition to conquer everything. His conquests, spread Greek culture all over the place, from Egypt to India, which had a massive impact on the course of history.
Yeah, Alexander's an interesting figure. On the one hand, he was this brilliant military strategist
Mm-hmm.
who created one of the largest empires the world had ever seen. But on the other hand, his empire didn't last very long,
Right.
and his conquests were often very brutal and destructive.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that even the most successful empires are built on, both achievement and violence. Okay, but let's talk about the big one, the one that everyone seems to be fascinated by, the Roman Empire. Their story is incredible.
Oh, yeah.
They start as this little republic and then eventually turn into this massive, unstoppable force that ruled the Mediterranean world for centuries.
It really is amazing how long the Roman Empire lasted.
It is.
I mean, to be able to maintain control over such a vast territory, and for so long.
Yeah, and they weren't just conquerors. The documentary highlights their engineering, like the aqueducts and road systems, a lot of which are still around today.
Yeah.
Um, They also established a complex legal system
Hmm.
and a period of, relative peace and prosperity, the Pax Romana.
Right.
But even the mighty Roman Empire couldn't escape decline. The documentary points to a bunch of things that contributed to its fall: political corruption, economic problems, overexpansion, and all those barbarian invasions.
It's like a classic cautionary tale,
Yeah.
a reminder that no empire lasts forever, no matter how powerful it seems.
It makes you wonder if there's some kind of like expiration date for empires. Like they reach a certain point and then their own size and complexity just starts to drag them down.
It's an interesting question,
Yeah.
one that historians have been debating for centuries. Was the fall of Rome inevitable, or could they have done something to prevent it?
I don't know. It's tempting to try to draw comparisons to the world today.
Yeah.
Look for signs of decline in our modern empires. But I'm not sure history always repeats itself.
Yeah, that's the thing about history. It's not a simple set of rules that we can just apply to the present,
Right.
but does offer us some valuable lessons if we're willing to really pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
And the Roman Empire's story, this blend of triumph and tragedy, I think it's a really powerful reminder that even the greatest civilizations aren't immune to change.
For sure. So we've covered a lot of ground here, from the rise of civilization to the birth of empires and the things that lead to their eventual decline. But the documentary doesn't stop there.
Right.
It also wants us to think about the legacy of these ancient civilizations. What impact do they have on the world?
Mhm.
What lessons can we learn from them? And I think, most importantly, can we avoid repeating their mistakes?
That's where things get really interesting, because these civilizations, even though they're long gone, they still have so much to teach us about who we are, where we came from, and where we might be going.
Yeah, it's like they're giving us a glimpse into the human condition, this timeless cycle of ambition and innovation, and the struggle to maintain success over time.
Absolutely.
Right.
And maybe that's the most valuable lesson of all.
Yeah.
If we can understand those patterns, those recurring themes throughout history, then maybe we can figure out how to break the cycle and create a future that's, well, a little more enlightened than the past.
So we've talked about, the big stuff, the rise and fall of empires, what makes them successful, what makes them fail. But what about some of the smaller details, the
Yeah.
things that maybe aren't so obvious, but that are still relevant to us today? What really stood out to you from the documentary?
One thing that I thought was really interesting was how much they focused on infrastructure.
Yeah,
Like they talked about the Persian Empire's Royal Road,
right.
which was this incredible, engineering project. It spanned like over 1,600 miles,
Wow.
and it connected huge parts of the empire.
Yeah,
And what's interesting is that it wasn't just for military purposes.
right.
It was also meant to help with trade and communication.
Yeah, it's like they knew that being connected was key to having a strong and successful empire.
Exactly. You need those channels for goods and ideas to flow.
Right.
And that idea, how important it is to be connected, it feels, I don't know, really relevant today, even though our roads look a little different now.
Yeah, that's true.
Think about the internet,
Hmm.
global supply chains, all these networks of communication that let us, talk to people and get information from all over the world.
Yeah.
Those are our modern royal roads.
Yeah, it's like those ancient empires were dealing with kind of an early form of globalization.
Right.
Trying to figure out how to manage these big interconnected systems, and some of the problems they had, like trying to keep things unified across different cultures.
Yeah.
Those sound pretty familiar, actually.
Absolutely. And speaking of cultural diversity, that's another thing that stuck out to me. Empires were often these melting pots of different traditions and languages and beliefs.
Right.
And, sometimes that caused conflict,
Sure.
but it also led to some amazing innovations.
So it's not just about tolerating those differences,
Right.
but actually recognizing that diversity can be a source of strength.
Exactly. When you bring different perspectives together, you get new ideas, new ways of thinking about things, new solutions that you wouldn't have come up with otherwise. It's like cross-pollination.
Mm-hmm.
You need that mix of different elements to really create something new and vibrant.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we've got connectivity, we've got diversity. Anything else that that strikes you as a particularly relevant takeaway from these ancient civilizations?
Hmm. I think it all comes back to resilience.
Okay.
These civilizations face so many challenges: wars, famines, natural disasters, political upheaval. But they always found ways to adapt, to rebuild, and to thrive, even when things were really tough. It's like they had this collective grit, this determination to not just survive,
Mm-hmm.
but to learn and grow from those challenges.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that that setbacks are going to happen,
Hmm.
both to us personally and to society as a whole. It's not about, trying to avoid failure, but about how we respond to it.
Exactly. And maybe maybe that's one of the biggest lessons we can learn from these ancient civilizations. They show us that even when things are really difficult, even when it seems like there's no hope, humans have this incredible capacity for resilience, for innovation, for hope.
And that's a really powerful message, especially today, when we're facing so many of our own problems.
Absolutely. We might not have all the answers, but we can take comfort in knowing that the people who came before us, they faced what seemed like impossible obstacles, and they found ways to overcome them.
Mm-hmm.
Their stories remind us that we're all part of this long human journey, and that even in the darkest times, there's always a reason to believe in our ability to adapt, to innovate, and to create a better future.
Well said. And I think that's a perfect place to wrap up this deep dive. We've covered a lot from the very beginning of civilization to the rise and fall of empires and what they left behind.
And I think the main takeaway is that history isn't just a bunch of old stories.
Right.
It's this living tapestry that connects us all. It shows us what it means to be human, the things we do, the successes and failures that have shaped the world we live in.
Yeah. And by studying that tapestry, by understanding how we're connected to the past, we can get a better sense of who we are and the challenges we face today.
Because in the end, history is about more than just knowing what happened. It's about using that knowledge to create a better future.
So keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep learning from the people who came before us, because the past might be gone, but it's never really lost. It's part of who we are today, and it holds the key to a brighter, wiser, and more resilient future.